Stop and think about the last time you walked into a room, a restaurant, a family gathering, a waiting room, and your eyes settled on another woman, and before she said a single word, some quiet voice in your head had already decided whether she looked expensive or whether she looked like she was trying. You didn't mean to judge. You couldn't help it. And the uncomfortable part is that every other woman in that room did exactly the same thing to you, in the same half second. And 9 times out of 10, the thing that tipped the scale wasn't the face, the hair, or even the clothes. It was the handbag. There's a reason for that. A handbag sits right at eye level. It's structured, it's covered in detail. Leather, metal, shape, finish. And the human eye reads all of that faster and far more harshly than it reads a blouse or a pair of trousers. Which is actually good news when you think about it, because it means that getting a few specific things right about the bag on your arm can lift your entire look, often without spending a cent. So let's go through the 7 handbags that quietly read as cheap, why they read that way, and exactly what to do about each one. And I'll tell you now, in every single case, the fix costs less than the mistake. Before we start, I want to be clear about something, because it matters. None of these are about age, and none are about how much money you have. Every one comes down to specific, identifiable features. How a leather is finished, how the metal is plated, how a bag holds its shape, how it's cared for. And once you can see those features, you can read quality on any bag, in any shop, at any price. That's the real skill here. Not buying expensive things. Recognizing what makes something look expensive. So think of this less as a list of rules and more as a way of training your eye, because by the time we reach the end, you'll be able to walk past a shop window and know, at a glance, which bags are quietly telling on themselves. 2 of them are going to matter more than the rest. Number 5. Because it's a habit almost every well-dressed woman over 60 was personally taught to follow. And number 7. Because it's the one that can quietly cancel out all the others. We'll build to both. Let's start with the most common one, because it's probably sitting in your closet right now, and it's the one you'd least suspect. The first handbag that reads as cheap is the high shine patent one, that wet-looking, glossy finish that catches the light and almost seems to squeak when you touch it. And I understand completely why it appeals, because for most of our lives, shiny meant new, shiny meant special. The glossy bag was the fancy one glowing in the department store window. That association was earned, in another era. But here is what's actually happening beneath that gloss. And once you know it, you can't unknow it. In leather manufacturing, a heavy patent or high-gloss coating is frequently used to cover low-grade or corrected leather, hides with visible imperfections that get sanded down, sprayed, and then sealed under a thick, plasticky lacquer. The shine isn't always proof of quality. Very often, it's there precisely to hide the absence of it. The flaws disappear under the coating, and a poor hide gets sold looking slick. And here's the fascinating part. Your eye already senses this, even when your conscious mind doesn't. High-grade leather reflects light softly and unevenly. It absorbs some and scatters some, giving back a deep, quiet glow with natural variation across the surface, and the brain reads that softness as richness, a hard, uniform. Mirror flat shine does the opposite. It reads as coated, manufactured, synthetic, because, very often, underneath, that's exactly what it is. You've been reading this signal correctly your whole life without ever putting it into words. So what you want instead is matte and texture. Look for pebbled or grained leather, a surface with a fine, even, slightly raised finish rather than a mirror. Run your thumb across it in the shop. If it has a soft, warm feel and doesn't throw the ceiling lights back into your eyes, that's a good sign. And there's one name worth committing to memory, Saffiano. That's the cross-hatched, lightly textured leather that Prada made famous, created by pressing a heated crosshatch pattern into the hide and sealing it with a wax finish, which makes it remarkably scratch-resistant, water-resistant, and expensive-looking for years, without ever going glossy. You can find that same textured effect at every price point now, from budget bags to designer, and it consistently reads as quality. And here's something you can do this very evening, for free. Take every bag you own to a window in daylight and hold each one up to the light. The one that glares back with a hard, flat shine is the one quietly dragging your whole look down. Set it aside, the one that looks soft and deep and rich in the light. That's the keeper. That covers the finish. The next one is about what's printed on the bag, and it's a case where the entire fashion world quietly reversed itself, and most of us never got the memo. The second handbag that reads as cheap now is the one covered in large, loud logos, the repeating monogram, the oversized brand name stamped across the front, the initials shouting from corner to corner, and this genuinely used to mean the opposite. For decades, a visible logo was shorthand for, "I bought the real thing. I invested in something good." That was true once, but two things flipped it completely. And both are worth understanding. The first is counterfeiting. The loud logo is the single most copied feature in all of fashion, which means the world is now flooded with fakes carrying exactly those big monograms. So a bold, shouting logo reads to a stranger's eye as this might not be real. Regardless of whether yours is genuine, you inherit the suspicion whether you deserve it or not. The second shift is deeper and more permanent. Over the past few years, the wealthiest and most style-literate buyers have moved firmly toward what's now called quiet luxury, deliberately understated, logo-free pieces, and retail analysis through 2024 confirms it's not a passing trend but a real reordering of what expensive looks like. In those circles, a shouting logo signals someone who needs the label to speak for them, because they're not sure the piece can speak for itself. Real money has gone quiet. The reassuring part is that this particular shift works entirely in your favor, because a quiet, logo-free bag doesn't cost more. The absence of noise is free. Choose a bag with no visible branding at all, or with the name embossed discreetly into the leather in the same color. So you'd only catch it up close. Let the shape, the leather, and the hardware do the talking. A clean, unbranded structured tote in a good camel or black will read as more expensive than the loudest monogram in the shop, every single time. Here's a simple test for what you already own. Look at each bag and ask whether a stranger could read a brand name on it from across a room. If the answer is yes, that's the one to think twice about before you carry it. Now, the next tell isn't the leather and it isn't the logo. It's a small metal detail most women never give a second thought to. And it happens to be the very first thing a stranger's eye actually lands on. The third handbag that reads as cheap is the one with tarnished or worn hardware. The zippers, clasps, buckles, and chains that have gone dull, brassy, discolored, or flaky. When that metal is bright, the bag looks finished and intentional. The moment it turns, it drags the whole bag down with it, and it happens so gradually that most of us never catch the day it crossed the line. The mechanism is worth knowing, because it explains everything. On a well-made bag, the hardware is solid metal, properly finished. On a cheaper one, it's thin base metal with a very thin layer of plating sprayed over the top. Tarnishing and discoloration happen when that plating oxidizes or simply wears through, exposing the reactive base metal underneath. And it wears through first exactly at the high touch points. The zipper pull you tug 100 times a week, the corners of the clasp your fingers find every time you open it. So the raw, discolored metal shows through precisely where your hand goes most. And here's the part that makes it so costly to your appearance. The human eye is drawn to shiny, glinting objects automatically, involuntarily, which means that little scuffed, discolored zipper pull is the exact spot a stranger's gaze goes first. It's the brightest, busiest point on the whole bag, a tiny detail, carrying an enormous amount of weight. You get two fixes here. One for tonight, one for the long run. Tonight, take a soft old toothbrush, a single drop of mild dish soap, and warm water, and gently clean the hardware on your good bags. You will genuinely be surprised how much of what looks like tarnish is really just built-up grime and skin oil. And it lifts right off, brightening the whole bag for nothing. For genuine tarnish, a small dab of metal polish on a cotton cloth, kept well away from the leather, brings back the shine. And for the long run, when you're choosing a bag, favor brushed, matte, or satin finish hardware over high shine plating. Because a satin finish simply doesn't broadcast wear the way mirror bright metal does. It keeps looking expensive for years longer. Small choice, lasting difference. The next one isn't a small detail at all. It's the entire shape of the bag, and it's one of the quietest ways a genuinely good outfit gets undercut. The fourth handbag that reads as cheap is the one that's lost its shape, the slouchy, collapsing, structureless bag that folds in on itself and puddles the moment you set it down. A soft, unstructured bag feels comfortable and casual, and years ago the slouchy hobo was genuinely in style. So this isn't about right and wrong, it's about what the collapse quietly signals. A structured bag that holds its shape looks intentional, designed, chosen, deliberate, cared for. A bag that sags reads as an afterthought, and there's a deeper reason it reads as cheap specifically. The collapse mimics exactly how low-grade material behaves. Quality leather has body, it has a backbone, it stands up on its own. Thin, bonded, low-grade material has no spine, so it slumps and folds and puddles. So when your bag collapses, a stranger's eye reads the material itself as flimsy and cheap, even when it isn't. The posture of the bag becomes the whole impression, the same way slumped shoulders change how we read a person before they've said a word. The fix doesn't require buying anything new. When you're shopping, choose bags with structure, a firm, defined base, sides that hold their form, a shape that stays put when you set it down, a structured tote, a top-handle bag, a boxy shoulder style. These hold their shape and their dignity together, and if you already own and love a bag that's gone soft, you don't have to give it up. An inexpensive bag shaper insert, which is just a firm felt liner that drops right inside, gives the bag its backbone back for a few dollars, and a slumping bag stands up straight again like new. To sort what you already own, stand all your bags up empty on a table. The ones that stay standing on their own are your expensive-looking ones. The ones that fold over and lie down are candidates for an insert or for retirement. And hold on to that word, structure, because it connects directly to the one I flagged at the start. Here it is, number 5, and it's different from the others, because it isn't a flaw in the bag at all. It's a habit, and it's one that most women over 60 were specifically, carefully taught to follow, praised for following, for most of their lives. The fifth handbag that reads as cheap is the one that perfectly matches the shoes and the belt, the same color, the same finish, very often bought together as a coordinated set. And I want you to stay easy with me on this one, because you were taught this, and taught it as the height of good taste. An entire generation of women was raised on the rule that matching your handbag to your shoes was the mark of a polished, well-groomed woman. Your mother did it. The magazines insisted on it, and it genuinely was elegant. Decades ago, that's precisely what makes this one so sneaky today. It still feels correct, while it quietly dates you by 40 years. Here's what actually happens to the modern eye. When the bag, the shoes, and the belt are all the identical color and finish, the whole look reads as a pre-packaged, matched set. And pre-packaged matching sets are exactly how budget retailers bundle and sell accessories. 3 coordinated pieces in a single box. So the very matching that once signaled care and money now signals the opposite. Bought together, off one rack, more current, more expensive style does something more sophisticated. It coordinates without matching. The pieces relate to one another. They share a color family, but they are never identical twins, and that slight, confident looseness is exactly what reads as modern and costly. So here's the principle to carry with you from now on. Coordinate. Don't match. Pick one anchor neutral, a soft camel, a rich chocolate brown, a black, a navy, and let your bag and your shoes live in the same family without being twins. A brown bag with slightly deeper brown boots. A black bag with a charcoal shoe, or a black shoe in a completely different texture. Related, not identical. And you can quietly let go of the old idea that the belt has to join the set at all. This is the rare fix that costs absolutely nothing and can be done this very afternoon, with the pieces already hanging in your closet. It's not a purchase, it's simply a shift in how you assemble what you own. The sixth one is quick, and honestly, it's one of the most fixable things on this entire list. The sixth handbag that reads as cheap is the overstuffed one, bulging at the seams, zipper straining, sides pushed square, so full it won't close flat, and there is genuinely nothing wrong with the woman carrying it. An overstuffed bag almost always belongs to someone capable, prepared, and ready for anything, which is an admirable quality. It just works against the look, for two reasons. First, overstuffing distorts the shape from the inside. That beautiful structured tote you chose so carefully bulges out into a lumpy, misshapen blob, and all the expensive-looking structure you invested in gets destroyed from within. Second, a bag visibly spilling over reads as harried and disorganized, and, fairly or not, the eye associates that visual chaos with carelessness, with someone who grabbed whatever was nearest and crammed their whole life into it. A calm, half-full bag that closes cleanly reads as controlled, considered, and expensive. The fix takes a few minutes and almost no money. Empty your everyday bag out onto the bed and be honest with yourself about what genuinely needs to travel with you every day, versus what's simply been riding along for months out of habit. Then contain what stays with 2 or 3 small zip pouches, one for cosmetics, one for cards and receipts, one for the odds and ends, everything organized. The bag closes cleanly, the structure returns, and you look organized because now you actually are. It's a small change, and it's probably the single fastest one on this list. Which brings us to the 7th, and this is the most important one, because it's the one that can quietly undo all 6 of the others. The 7th handbag that reads as cheap is the one carried well past the end of its life. The corners scuffed and worn pale, the edges frayed, a strap cracking or peeling, the lining torn open at the seams. And I want to be genuinely gentle about this one, because holding onto a bag this long almost always means one of 2 good things. Either you loved it, or you were being sensible and refusing to be wasteful. Both of those are admirable instincts. But here's the honest part, and you deserve to hear it plainly. Every other fix in this video can be completely canceled out by this one mistake. You can carry a matte, logo-free, beautifully structured bag with gleaming satin hardware, perfectly coordinated and calmly organized. But if the corners are worn white and the strap is splitting, a stranger's eye goes straight to the damage. Every time. And damage reads as cheap, instantly, and involuntarily, no matter what that bag cost when it was new. Visible wear reads as neglect. And neglect is the precise opposite of the impression you're after, because looking quietly expensive is, at its very core, about owning good things and keeping them well. So the fix here is the gentlest thing I'll tell you, and I think the most freeing. First, rescue what can be rescued. A cobbler or a leather repair shop can recondition dried leather, replace a broken strap, and re-dye worn corners for a small fraction of what a new bag costs. And the vast majority of women never even think to walk in and ask. But if a bag is truly, genuinely finished, here is the real lesson underneath it, and it's the one that matters most for anyone watching a budget. One well-made, well-kept bag will always serve you better than 5 tired, worn-out ones. Own less, and care for what you own far more. A single structured bag in a good neutral color, wiped down and conditioned just twice a year, will make you look more expensive than a closet full of neglected bags ever could. That, right there, is the whole secret of looking rich on a modest budget. It was never about having many things. It was always about caring for a few good ones. And that's really the single thread running through all 7, the thing every fix has quietly been pointing toward. Looking expensive was never, not once, about spending more money. It's about restraint and care. A quiet matte finish over a loud shine. No logo over a big one. Brushed metal over cheap bright plating. Structure over slump. Coordinating over matching. A calm bag over a crammed one. A cared-for bag over a neglected one. Every single tell we covered today is really the same idea, wearing 7 different disguises. Cheapness tends to be noise and neglect, and elegance tends to be quiet and well-kept. Once you can see that clearly, you'll start noticing it everywhere, on every bag in every room, and, far more usefully, you'll know exactly how to apply it to yourself, starting with the bag you reach for tomorrow morning. If there's one thing I'd want you to hold on to, it's this. You were never the problem. Most of us were simply following rules that were true once and quietly stopped being true. Matching the bag to the shoes because a well-dressed generation lovingly taught us to. Reaching for the shiny bag because shiny used to mean special. None of that was foolish. It was faithful to good advice that simply expired without anyone sending word. And the fixes ask almost nothing of you. A look at your bags in a window, an old toothbrush, a felt insert, a trip to the cobbler, and one small shift from matching to coordinating. You don't need a new wardrobe to look put together and quietly expensive. You never did. You only needed to understand what your eye was already sensing all along. And now you do. I'd genuinely like to know which of these 7 you recognized in your own closet. For most people, it's 1 or 2 that catch them a little off guard. So if you feel like telling me, I read what people write, there's more of this every week. If it's the kind of thing that's useful to you,